Bonjour, Pokemon PNC Indigenous Magazine Totem Mabino Skygun and Donji. Good morning, everyone. Um, yeah, um, yeah. So I guess today I thought I would share share another one of my medicine stories. I guess you could say. Um, so yeah, I guess I want to talk about the first time I went to a peyote ceremony, which is under they call it the Native American Church, and I think that's the U.S. name, our most commonly used name. But I think in Canada they also call it the First Nations Ceremonial Church of Canada. I think. Anyways, it's based under the Peyoteism Act. I'm thinking more of the states, but I'm pretty sure the same applies to Canada. Um, but anyways, so yeah, it's considered an official religion. I'm pretty sure. But anyways, it's a spiritual practice and one that's been in place for a considerable amount of time, depending on who you consult. I mean, there's some of the tribes in Mexico that have had these traditions going on for like at least a couple thousand years, right? It seems. Um, a very lengthy one too, if I remember correctly. Like down there's like a 25-year like process or something that their like shamans go through or something. So, but anyways, that's a little different than kind of what I'm referring to. And so yeah, they call them meetings, I guess. But essentially, yeah. So where would I begin here? I mean, so yeah, okay, yeah. I guess I could talk about how I even stumbled across the whole. So yeah, long time ago. Holy smokes, I'm getting old. When I was like in my early 20s, I had decided I wanted to smarten up, I guess you could say, and so I started walking a, spiritual path, I guess you could say. I started going to the sweat lodge on a regular basis. This elder took me to the Sundance, and then so from there I just became really enmeshed in the cultural community out here in the Lower Mainland at that time. So this would have been like 2009 ish, 2010, kind of that era. And so, anyways, yeah. So this has just become a regular thing. One day, how did this go again? Right, yeah. I was just finishing my first fast. It was a 2 day fast. I did it out in North Van. This guy named Ruben. He had a lodge there, and anyways, it was a good little 2 day fast, and then so there was a sweat lodge to come out of the fast. They do a sweat, or he did a sweat, and so I remember when I stood up in the middle of one of the rounds because I hadn't eaten or whatever, and it's just hot, and then I was like stood up and I just man, I almost like blacked out. I just got so dizzy and just like oh my god, um, yeah, it was just because I didn't have any blood sugar or whatever. But anyways, at that sweat, so afterwards we had a feast, right? And then yeah, there was this other young guy there. He was basically, I'm pretty sure we were like almost basically the same age. The only difference was he was Cree, and but he knew Anishinaabe songs, and he knew Anishinaabe some teachings and that sort of thing, right? So anyways, we struck up a conversation, and he's aware of the fact that I just completed my first fast and that sort of thing, right? And then anyways, he had his phone on him, and he started playing this song. And I never heard that kind of song before, and it was like a little water drum, like it was made like a water drum, and then this rattle. So they call it a gourd. And anyways, yeah, it was the first time I heard a peyote song, and I was like, oh, cool. I was like, that's kind of cool. He's like, yeah, we have these peyote ceremonies. He's like, do you want to come check one out? And I was like, I'm not sure. I was like, because I was still young and still, I just wasn't sure, I guess. And then I guess because I was on I don't like to use this language nowadays, but back then I'd say things like, "Oh, I'm clean and sober," and that sort of thing, right? And so because of that, in my mind, I was like, well, peyote. I was like, I was thinking in a, European. I don't know. I wasn't. What am I trying to say here? Oh my goodness. Anyways, I was hesitant at first. That's the point I'm trying to make. I was hesitant at first because I was concerned it might affect my quote sobriety or whatever. But after a few months, I continued to get to know him. We went for coffee and went to other sweats and stuff, and just became friends, right? And after about after about 6 months, I want to say, finally, he finally twisted my arm enough that I was like, all right, man. I guess I'll come check out one of the ceremonies you're talking about. And so he's like, okay. And so he, set it up. I guess there was already one happening soon in the next little while, and so yeah, he took me to my first peyote ceremony, and so this would have been September of 2010, I believe, and so it was in Surrey, BC. It was at this house, kind of down the hill, a little kind of secluded. Yeah, there was some bush kind of surrounding, which was kind of nice. And then yeah, they had the teepee down there, right? It's like yeah, they had the teepee set up, that sort of thing, and it was like, well, okay. And so the way it works is, it takes place at nighttime, and so it kind of the idea, something to the effect of like yeah, it takes like from sundown to sunrise, right? So it's a nighttime kind of ceremony, and it does go through the whole night, right? So I think we started at like maybe around 10:30 or something like that. And so yeah, one thing I distinctly remember, as soon as I walked into the teepee, as soon as I walked in, it was so bizarre. But as soon as I walked in, I had this weird deja vu. Is this deja vu? Like whoa, like I've been here before. It was like I had this sense that like my ancestors had sat in a similar teepee, and it was just a really strange kind of feeling. And I was like, oh okay. And so I went and sat down, picked a spot to go sit down, and it's like okay. And so the ceremony's about to start, and so yeah, the way it is, they got this little fireplace, right? And the way they set up the fire is kind of like that. So the fire will kind of be in this area here, and then they continuously like add logs to that, and then it kind of they like push it in over the course of the night, and it creates these like coals. And then with these coals, it's kind of nice. So there's this half moon, like set. It's like a mound, I guess, like a half moon mound with sand, a couple inches off the ground, sort of thing. So like that, and then yeah. So like I said, with the way the fireplace is set up, and then with the coals, they're able to make these like things like a star, for example. So with the coals, like, and it's very subtle. It's very like the firemen's just kind of casually just but then once you kind of see, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat how they did that. You know. So, anyways, and there's other things they do with that too. But anyways, so yeah, okay. So the ceremony starting, the way they started off is with these corn husks, right? And so there's like they put the tobacco in there. They got the corn husk, and so you kind of like smoke that, and then and as you're puffing it, you don't inhale it obviously, but you and you're praying, right? And so everybody's kind of blowing their smoke into the fire, into the middle, right? 'Cause we're all sitting in a big circle. And then yeah, so they're kind of like that, and then the firemen or one of the helpers will go around and collect all the corn husks, all the things, and then they'll usually put it at either one or both ends of that half moon I was talking about, so like kind of on each side. And then yeah, and then they'll start like singing. They got this like little water drum that they have. It's kind of small, but it has a very distinct sound. A very distinct sound when you hear it. It's got this like resonance or frequency to it, which is really really neat. And then the gourd too, and it's a certain type of gourd, and not only that, the way they sing with it and the way they shake it is a very distinct like it's a very distinct kind of sound and movement. It's not just shake and a rattle. It's a very, I don't know how to explain it, but anyways, it's, yeah, it sounds really nice. It sounds really beautiful. And so yeah, they start singing, and then at some point, they start passing the medicine around. And so at this particular ceremony, they had made this mush. So it was like in this big bowl, right? This big bowl with the spoon, and I guess they just made a big mush. I don't know how, what the ingredients were in there, but whatever it was, in my experience, that is the best way to consume it, because I've had it in the powdered form. It's so dry, and it's difficult to. It's a very unpleasant tasting substance, so it's difficult to eat. But in the mush form that they had at this ceremony, it made it a little bit more palatable, a little bit more digestible. And so, if I remember correctly, I took four like spoons worth, because I was thinking of like the four directions and the four seasons and that sort of thing, right? So yeah, okay, four good spoonfuls. Pass it to the next person, and then they start passing the tea around. Right? They got these big like things of tea, like they're big jars, and you can see the peyote like floating around in there, like big peyote buttons, and then yeah, so it's the tea, right? So they pass the tea around, right? And so after having eaten that and then the tea, like that's a fair amount, right? And so yeah, the ceremony continues. Um, but one thing I remember is that hmm, it took about 2 hours for it to kick in, like about a good solid 2 hours before I really started to actually feel anything. But then once I did though, it was just like, whew, oh, okay, there it is. Yep. It's just like, and it was, man, it was a beautiful experience. It was different, very different. It was different in its own way. It was beautiful, and I remember certain aspects of the ceremony, especially the part where there's two parts. There's one where a dude will do like a prayer to the fire, but the way it's done, it's like that fire represents like a portal or like a doorway of some kind, and so when they're speaking into it like that, it's kind of like they're speaking directly, you know, to the creator, to God, you know, and so yeah, and so I remember, so there's that, so there's a part where a man will do it, and then I think in the morning, I think a woman will do the same thing, the same kind of thing, and man, those prayers are really beautiful. I like the way they, it's just it's really nice, you know. And so yeah, and so you got to sit up throughout the whole night. So they call it sitting up, and so basically you want to bring some pillows with you, because the way you got to sit is like you basically got to sit on your knees all night like that. You basically, so usually you'll put a pillow like here, and then maybe you have one under your knees, right, like that. So two, I guess, and then you got to basically just hold that position for as long as you can, because obviously people, it's natural to, you're like, after like 2 or 3 hours of that, you're like, oh man, I need to stretch my leg for a second, and so like that, which is fine. But if you stay like cross-legged, or for too long, people beside you will be like, hey, sit up, sit up, and it's like, and that's out of respect, right? It's out of respect for that medicine. It's out of respect for those spirits that are kind of coming through there. It's like you do a little bit of suffering, so that maybe they can come in there and like help you out or something, right? So, but again, like I should also communicate this, that like I'm not an expert on like peyote or peyote ceremony. I'm not a medicine man or anything like that. I'm just sharing, my experience, right? And what that was like. And so yeah, so okay, so and then I remember this one part too. So this other guy is his first time too, eh? And anyways, we're like, we're both really feeling the medicine by now, because by now they've already passed it around a few times. you're just like, And so anyways, I can't remember, but it was like we had this like moment where we're like both laughing, and we're both like shaking the roadmen were like looking at us like but they kind of smirked a little bit too because I think they knew like, oh, these guys are really feeling it. So, but yeah, no. And so, anyways, so the songs are really nice, and then in the morning, the way they bring the food in, it's like a straight line, right? And it's and the way everything's aligned up, even yeah. So there's this in the teepee. There's this one part. If it's done right, if it's done correctly, the way there'll be two like kind of like crossover like that, but in the morning, when the sun rises, um, they're yeah, like I said, if it's done correctly, it'll like kind of align with all of that, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to align all of that in a good way, all that, you know, boom, like that in that food, and it's just like like that. And so yeah, it's pretty powerful. And anyways, and so after that's done, the ceremony isn't quite complete. There was a bit of a break, so where they were preparing the feast. So about a good 3, maybe even 4 hours, because yeah, we wrapped up at about 7 in the morning, but then the feast didn't start till about 11. So there was about a good 4 hours of downtime. So people will they'll either go take a quick nap or they'll just hang out, or some people will start do some practice songs. They'll just keep hitting the drum and just keep practicing. Some people, if they got their own medicine, they'll be like, "Oh, let's eat some medicine and sing some more songs," and like, or sometimes I remember at a different ceremony they had like a sweat lodge. So after the peyote ceremony was done, people would basically go and get ready for the sweat, go in the sweat, and then after the sweat, then there'd be that feast, right? So it depends on where you go, but the idea is generally the same. And so one of the things that I remember them saying, and this actually really stuck out for me because I was like, huh, I'm like that kind of. I was like, okay, so so it's about this idea of like in the middle of the night, around 2 or 3 o'clock, somewhere in that window, it gets really, really, really quiet, right? Like all the animals are sleeping, all the insects are sleeping, and it's just really, 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 really quiet. And so it's at that time at night and during the ceremony when like they say that the ear of God is like listening at that time because it's so quiet, and so people will like pray certain things at that time, right? So yeah, it's like, huh, okay. I was like, that's a really cool teaching, man. I was like, that's wow, you know. So yeah, from there, I think I did a total of 5 ceremonies, if I remember correctly. I remember going to one out in Salt Spring Island, um, and then North Van. So there's a few different spots in the Lower Mainland in BC that where they have them, once in a while. I mean, I'd imagine nowadays they might not be happening as frequently because last I heard, the peyote gardens in Mexico over time has gotten kind of smaller and smaller because of like economic development and stuff, and so it's becoming harder and harder to get the medicine, I think. So yeah, so I guess if you ever have an opportunity and then there is one, make sure really appreciate it because you know. But anyways, what else was there? Yeah, so I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, and so I guess the idea there was yeah. Uh, it's a beautiful ceremony, and so yeah, and so that ceremony kind of that teepee, it's almost like a container for the experience, right? And so that definitely plays a significant role in it. And then even just the ceremony itself is beautiful. Even if you don't take the medicine, just the ceremony itself is just like, wow, man, this is so like, the fact that like the way it is, it's like, man, somebody actually, like a lot of thought, time, and effort kind of went into like how all that is, and it's just, it's really beautiful, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. That went a little longer than I expected, but anyways, I hope people out there are getting something out of these stories and getting something out of this content. And yeah, and I really appreciate those who took the time to listen. And so with that, I say miigwech.